The debate over the final spot in the college football playoff has sparked intense discussions, particularly as several teams with flawed resumes battle. With playoff expansion on the horizon, the question is how the selection committee will weigh the credentials of teams like Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Miami. Mississippi's Lane Kiffin has been vocal in promoting his 9-3 Rebels, even calling out South Carolina after Ole Miss' dominant 27-3 win over the Gamecocks. Kiffin emphasized how the scoreline demonstrated a clear gap between the two teams. But what about Alabama? Despite also finishing 9-3, Alabama was ranked higher than Ole Miss, with both teams securing rivalry wins by 2 touchdown margins. But should Alabama's ranking over Ole Miss be justified? The debate starts with how to value these teams. If the committee rewards the team with the fewest losses, Miami's 10-2 record would give it the upper hand over 3-loss SEC teams. However, Miami's resume doesn't impress compared to others, like BYU, which placed third in the Big 12 with a more muscular strength of schedule and a road win over SMU, the ACC's top team. Even though Miami has fewer losses, BYU arguably deserves the bid, but the committee has shown little interest in the Cougars. When evaluating the best wins, Alabama's victory over 3 ranked teams, Georgia, South Carolina, and Missouri, makes it stand out. Ole Miss also has a win over Georgia and a blowout of South Carolina, but lacks a third major win. South Carolina's best wins were over Clemson, Missouri, and Texas A&M, while Miami's most decisive victories came against Duke, Louisville, and Florida. By this metric, Alabama should earn the bid for having the best collection of wins. Another metric worth considering is the hot hand theory, which could favor South Carolina. The Gamecocks won their final 6 games, bolstered by a strong defense and improving freshman quarterback Lonorris Sellers. On the other hand, Ole Miss faltered with a loss at Florida, and Alabama was overwhelmed by Oklahoma in a blowout. South Carolina's recent form makes a strong case for their inclusion. Head-to-head results could further complicate things. Alabama edged South Carolina 27-25 in a thrilling game, with the result decided in the final moments. But Ole Miss' earlier domination of South Carolina should not be overlooked. A head-to-head evaluation would favor Ole Miss, as their decisive victory makes a compelling argument. When considering the best losses, South Carolina's 3 defeats were to teams with at least 8-4 records, but 2 came at home. Alabama's losses were all on the road, including a brutal 24-3 defeat to Oklahoma, which has struggled against other top teams. Despite its 3 losses, Ole Miss suffered by a combined 13 points, but a September loss to Kentucky, now 4-8, looks worse as the season progresses. This category does not provide a clear-cut winner, as each team has its blemishes. The eye test is the final piece of the puzzle. According to the committee, selecting the best teams requires subjective judgment. While opinions vary, Ole Miss stands out at its best, dominating quality opponents like Georgia and South Carolina. While inconsistent at times, their defense is strong, and their offense has been good enough to compete at a high level. Ole Miss would earn the final bid, if the committee values the eye test. Ultimately, Miami's case seems weak, especially after its late-season struggles. If the committee chooses a 2-loss team, BYU would be a strong contender, though unlikely to get the nod. Between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, each team presents an argument, but also significant flaws. None of these teams earn their spot on the field consistently enough to secure a place in the playoff without resorting to persuasive rhetoric in the spin room. The committee's final decision will likely be a compromise, choosing the team that best fits their criteria, but there's no clear-cut choice among these bubble teams.